Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please, guys, participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1.
You will hear a man and a woman talking about a curriculum vitae. You have 30 seconds to read questions 1 to 4.
What's up, Junhee? You don't look happy.
I rang about 3 jobs today, Harry. 2 of them had already gone. The last employer asked for my CV, which I sent off straight away, but I know he won't call back.
Oh dear. Would you like a cup of tea?
Thanks a lot. What I'd really like is some advice. I haven't had a single job interview in the entire month I've been looking for work, and if I don't find something soon, I'll have to borrow money from my parents again to continue my studies. I really don't want to do that.
I saw your friend Fumiko today. Why don't you get a job with her in the cafe?
I'd love to, but I've never worked in hospitality in any capacity. In fact, that's one of my problems. I don't have much experience at anything. I've only been a nanny for a summer in Paris just before I started my undergraduate degree.
Didn't you work for your uncle in Seoul?
I worked for a fortnight when his office assistant was away, but I wouldn't call that a job.
What did you do?
Photocopying and typing mostly. I'm not very good at typing.
Is that job on your CV?
No, I was too ashamed to include it. Besides, what would happen if anyone actually gave me a typing test? I'd fail miserably.
I've got an idea. Show me your CV and I'll help you redesign it.
Would you, Harry? I'd really appreciate that.
Before you listen to the rest of the conversation, you have 30 seconds to read questions 5 to 10.
Looking at your CV, I do like the colors you've chosen. I'd certainly keep them. Do you know what I mean by the word font?
The style of the letters, whether they're Times New Roman or Arial?
Yes. You've got about 10 different fonts.
I thought that'd show I had creative flair. It's fun to use a variety, isn't it?
Fun for a party invitation. Stick to 2 fonts is my advice.
All right. What about the content? You're a local lad. I expect you can give me some pointers about the content.
Your education in Korea is fine, and so is being a nanny. In Britain, people don't usually mention whether they're single or married. It's unnecessary to include your hobbies, especially if they're dangerous.
Are you sure about that? Doesn't snowboarding make me sound more interesting? Like a person who's looking for a challenge?
No. Employers might think you won't find their job exciting enough.
It seems we should cross off both my marital status and my sports.
I can't see here that you're a master's student or that you've got a driving license.
No, I didn't want to say I was doing a postgrad course because an employer might wonder why I'm applying for such a lowly job. I didn't mention being able to drive because almost everyone here my age can. Do I really need to spell that out?
Yes. And you're fluent in Mandarin, right?
Right. I studied in Nanjing for almost 2 years as part of an exchange program. My spoken Mandarin is pretty good, and if necessary, I could brush up my writing. I used to know about 2,000 characters. I picked up some French while I was nannying in Paris, but I'm hardly fluent, and I doubt it would be useful to an employer here.
So, let's add driver's license and 3 languages as your skills. We'll forget about your being single and the snowboarding. Let's keep the blue, put all the text on the left, and reduce the fonts.
Thanks, Harry. That's much better.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
You will hear an artist talking about her copper sculpture. Before you listen, you have 30 seconds to read questions 11 to 14.
And now on Art Today, I've got Michelle Blanche.
Good morning.
So, you're off to Italy tomorrow?
Yes, I'm taking part in a major international art exhibition called the Venice Biennale.
Congratulations. What work are you taking?
10 small copper sculptures that I'm just putting the finishing touches to. They're on the theme of people and pets.
That's kind of a strange theme for a contemporary art show, isn't it?
Perhaps, but I follow traditions that date back to ancient Greece. I believe in highly developed craft as well as accessibility to the viewer. Frankly, I find a lot of modern art has alienated the public both with its form and content. I'm trying to create something that people can easily respond to.
So, why people and pets?
You're not the first person to have asked me that question. Actually, I've never owned a pet myself, but last year I saw an amazing TV program about a general hospital in Calgary. Volunteers take dogs onto wards there during visiting hours, and the presence of the animals has been found to improve patients' health significantly. Raising the spirit does wonders for the body. It seems that people heal faster if they can be around an animal or if they have their own pet, so I decided to explore this in my artwork.
Interesting. Who buys your sculptures?
I've sold to both private art collectors and public museums. All up, about 20 of my small works have been purchased by individuals. The Lightfoot building downtown has one of my early copper pieces in its foyer. You can see it through the window from Brook Street. And 2 regional museums have bought large bronze sculptures that I made in 2011.
And you've just been asked by the mayor to produce a statue, right?
Not the mayor himself, but a local council. The council had a competition for a work based on local history, which I won. I'm making a sculpture for a square downtown. It's my first major outdoor commission, so I'm very excited.
Anything to do with animals?
Yes, it honours a dog that saved a girl in the river. Everyone in the city knows this story. It's practically a legend, but there's not one memorial to this incredible act of devotion.
Before you listen to the rest of the interview, you have 30 seconds to read questions 15 to 20.
So, Michelle, tell our listeners about the process of making a large copper sculpture.
For me, the process is as remarkable and as enjoyable as the finished product. It's physically quite tough, which I think accounts for not many women pursuing metal-based sculpture. Generally, I submit a portfolio of work to a client. After being chosen for a commission, I spend around 2 weeks modelling the sculpture in clay. Then I make a perfect wax copy, coated in a slurry of stucco and ducted with ceramic granules.
Hang on a minute. That's too technical for me.
Okay, basically I make a clay model, then I make a copy in wax. I use wax because, ultimately, this will be melted and replaced with copper. The wax model is painted with a special liquid which is called stucco. It's a kind of soft plaster. Then the stucco is sprayed with tiny grains of ceramic to make a hard shell or cast.
What's next?
The cast is fired, heated to a very high temperature, in an industrial furnace. My studio is in a disused boiler-making factory, and I'm very fortunate to have this furnace. The firing process is a little dangerous, so I employ 2 assistants. While they're firing the cast, I prepare the metal.
The copper?
Yes. In fact, a copper sculpture is not 100% copper. It consists of 3 elements: 95% copper, 4% silicon, and 1% manganese. The trace elements strengthen the copper without altering its other qualities.
Uh-huh.
After the cast is made, the molten metal is poured in and left to set. Setting takes several hours, depending on the size of the work. When the cast is removed, the sculpture is polished. This also takes time, but is quite thrilling since you see the brightly shining metal emerge beneath your hands. As I said before, the process is quite physically demanding, but the end result is gorgeous.
Indeed.
Finally, it's approved by the commissioning authority and installed in its permanent place. In this case, the city square.
When is the installation date?
The 3rd of June, which marks the centenary of the girls' rescue.
The end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear an interview with Students Placement Officer talking about work placements. First, you have some time to read questions 21 to 25.
Hello, Mike.
Hi, Dave. Come in and take a seat.
Thanks. Can you explain to our students how a work placement increases their chances of securing a job after they've graduated?
Well, the most obvious thing to say here is that many graduates go on to work for the company that offered them the placement experience in the first place.
Yes, I can see why this might happen, but in a more general sense, what are the benefits of a placement?
Right. Placements give students a real insight into the culture of the workplace and how they can transfer their knowledge and skills to it. By drawing on placement experiences, graduates are able to sell themselves more effectively when applying for a job or compiling a CV. And at the interview stage, graduates appear more confident and can express themselves in a language appropriate to their chosen career.
Okay, fine. And what about the employer's perspective on work placements? How do employers benefit?
Employers can see how a prospective employee performs within a team, also whether they are a good communicator and problem solver. It's a job with duties and responsibilities at a level that an undergraduate should cope with. Work placements help employers to recruit the right person for the job.
And what about when the student returns to college at the end of the placement? What advantages does the work experience bring to college work?
Well, the majority of students find their placements to be positive learning experiences. Work experience enables students to make links between theory and practice, which should facilitate academic learning.
Right, and just one last thing on placements. What about mentorship and support during the work placement?
Each student has a mentor in the workplace and a placement tutor, an academic member of staff who makes regular visits to the workplace to discuss the student's progress and, if necessary, resolve any problems or issues.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Now you have some time to read questions 26 to 30.
Now, continuing with our theme of graduate employment, we're going to talk about soft skills, what they are, and why you need them. Mike, can you define what is meant by soft skills?
Yes, soft skills are an extension of what I mentioned earlier when I spoke about team working and communication. It's not sufficient these days to have only the know-how. By that I mean technical skills to do the job. Employers also look for personal qualities and interpersonal skills.
And why are personal qualities so important in the business world?
Well, employers want people that are going to add value to their business and not detract from it. Simple things like lack of punctuality, showing up on time and being dependable will always be important to any company, as are honesty and integrity. These personal characteristics are an inherent part of an individual's makeup and are difficult to change. Soft skills also include coping skills when faced with difficult situations and challenges. Again, performance in these areas is linked with inbuilt traits.
I see. And what about interpersonal skills? Can't these be improved with practice or training?
Yes, they can, because it is possible to change the way that you interact with colleagues and customers. The ability to communicate effectively, both through speech and in your documentation, is at the core of interpersonal skills. Equally important is the ability to demonstrate respectful listening.
And how will good soft skills help you in an interview situation?
Soft skills are vital to a successful interview. The impression you create can play a large part in the decision to make a job offer or not. Employers need to know that you have the right attitude. Will you fit in? Are you a team player? Do you appear positive and enthusiastic? You must be able to make the necessary changes to market yourself in this way.
Well, thanks, Mike. That's most interesting.
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
Hear a lecturer talking about Charles Darwin and Galapagos Islands. First, you have some time to read questions 31 to 40.
Today I'm going to talk about a man who explained how life on Earth evolved through a process of natural selection, the survival of the fittest. His name is Charles Darwin, and he was born in England in 1809. Darwin's mother was the daughter of the renowned Staffordshire potter Josiah Wedgwood, and his father was a wealthy doctor. Darwin's mother died when he was 9 years old, and his father sent him to boarding school. During vacations, Darwin would collect and study wildlife, especially insects. In 1825, Darwin attended the University of Edinburgh to study medicine. However, he lacked the aptitude for the subject, being more interested in botany. He joined a student natural history group which introduced him to the science of geology. Darwin left medical school 2 years later without completing his training. Darwin's father was disappointed by his son's failure at Edinburgh, and he sent him to Cambridge to study theology. He graduated from Cambridge in 1831, aged 22, but decided against becoming a clergyman, much to the dismay of his father. Whilst at Cambridge, Darwin had met a professor of botany, who encouraged him to pursue his interest in natural history, and later recommended him as a crew member on the Royal Navy mapping ship HMS Beagle. The ship embarked for South America in 1831, sailing from Plymouth, England. It dropped anchor in Brazil, Argentina, the Falkland Islands and Chile, before arriving at the Galapagos Islands in 1835. Here Darwin observed species of plants, birds and reptiles that were unique to the islands. The rest of the journey took in Sydney, Australia and Cape Town, South Africa, with stops in the Keeling Islands and Mauritius. The route back to England included a stop in the tropics of South America, where Darwin made further important discoveries. The journey took 5 years and enabled Darwin to study life on 3 continents, collecting plants, insects and rock samples whilst taking notes and making drawings. In 1839, Darwin married his cousin Emma Wedgwood, and they had 10 children. He published the zoological findings of the HMS Beagle expedition between 1838 and 1843, in several parts, covering birds, fossils, insects, reptiles and mammals. Darwin continued with his research into natural selection, culminating in his seminal work On the Origin of Species, published in 1859. The book was an overnight success, though it caused widespread controversy, because its theories appeared to conflict with the accepted religious view of creationism. Nevertheless, Charles Darwin's theories gradually gained acceptance, and when he died in 1882, aged 73, he was honoured by being buried in Westminster Abbey. He will always be known as the father of evolution. Of all the places Darwin visited, it is the Galapagos Islands that are most associated with his theory of evolution. The islands lie in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Ecuador, South America. The word Galapago is Spanish for terrapin, and it refers to a small edible turtle that Spanish sailors used as a food source. Darwin observed variations in turtles, reptiles, birds and other species unique to each island, suggesting that the animals had adapted to their specific environment. The distances between the islands were too large for the animals to interbreed, so they must have descended from a common ancestor. Darwin also found fossilized remains of creatures that were now extinct, consistent with a failure to adapt to changes in habitat. Darwin believed in the survival of the fittest. That is to say, only those members of a species that were best adapted to their surroundings would survive. For example, the finches on the island had beaks of a different size and shape suited to their diet. Long pointed beaks to probe for grubs and to grab small seeds, or wider sturdy beaks for cracking nuts and eating larger seeds. The extinction of animals not capable of competing for the food is vital to Darwin's theory of natural selection.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you cut guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.